Hello and welcome to another episode of a weekly Waypoint, a show where I talk about my week and the things that interest me. I haven't used that intro in a little bit, but we've got some new subscribers, and you might look at a thumbnail that has the number 321 on it and go, good lord, what is happening in there? Today we are playing a game called Isonzo, a little World War One shooter that's just hit Game Pass that I was curious about. I thought it might hit the Call of Duty itch, which I've been waiting to scratch since it was announced that Microsoft were purchasing Activision. I went, oh cool, they're going to put all the Call of Duty games on Game Pass. And they said they would, and they still haven't. I think they said they would. Maybe I'm assuming that. I can't remember anymore. Anyway, turns out this wasn't Call of Duty, it was Battlefield. But you know what? It's pretty damn fun. I've not played a whole lot of, Battlefield, so maybe this is just me kind of, discovering the Battlefield experience. I have, played a couple matches of, Battlefield, is it 4 or 1? Battlefield 1 that takes place in World War 1, but, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this game's better than that, if it's worse than that. All I know is it's functional, it's fun, and it's very, it's hyper-realistic, so it's pretty much one-shot kills. But in this age of World War One, where, rifles are, you shoot, and then you kind of, you don't reload, but you do that thing where you ka-ching, and then it's not like machine guns, and the only machine guns are the ones that are mounted, like the one I'm currently using. So it's almost like giving me Unreal Tournament Instagib vibes of one shot kill rifles, and it's just, yeah, it's fun. The thing that always puts me off with these Battlefield style games though is sometimes you load into a game and you get a really fun kind of narrative of, oh, there's these objectives you need to defend or whatever. I feel like I always enjoy defending more, and you need to defend them and people are pushing up the hill and you kill loads of them and then you die and then you've got to get back to that place and you're trying to hold the objective. That's always really fun. And then you get the bad games where you just keep dying and dying and dying. Usually if I'm trying to storm a base on an offensive or something. And yeah, I just feel like maybe over the course of this sentence I'm realizing, hey, maybe it's more fun to play defensive on these games than it is to play offensive, because every time I play offensive I feel like I just always die, I never get anything done, I'm just throwing myself against a brick wall and I have a bad time. My original point was just going to be you get some games which are good, and you get some games which just frustrate you. Like Battlefield, all Battlefield style games are really good at frustrating me in a way that causes me to rage quit. I don't rage quit a lot of types of games, but I think I do with these types. Anyway, this is a game that went well, that I enjoyed. Maybe it's less rage quit and more getting fed up and leaving, but still. Anyway, last week's Weekly Waypoint took place in a game called Ballistic NG, which is this Wipeout clone that I have actually been playing a lot more of as the week's gone on. I kind of I just needed something quick and easy for background footage for the Weekly Waypoint, and then after I made that video, I just kept going, I just want to keep playing, and so it's been kind of my go-to, put the game on, listen to a podcast, just get immersed in the podcast or whatever. Is really, really, really fun. I highly recommend you check it out. It's funny because these last few months I feel like I've been so involved in RPGs and narrative-led games, it almost feels weird to be spending so much time in a game that's just a silly little racing game, a silly little hyperspeed anti-gravity racing game, It's almost like I'm reminding myself that games aren't stories that I have to get through. They can just be fun. That's what video games are made for, I wrote a blog post last week about freaking out about the idea that I'm not going to get around to checking out every story I want to check out before I die of old age. And yeah, I'm at that point in my life, I guess. So I feel like playing a lot of Ballistic NG, this Wipeout style game, has kind of cleared my mind a bit and just being it doesn't matter, you just want to have a fun time when you're playing video games. And there might be stories you want to get around to, but just try and live in the moment a little bit more. That's my idea of living in the moment anyway, playing a video game that doesn't have a story. It's me, the #1 introvert. Now, last week I talked about getting a new phone. I've also acquired another piece of new hardware. I've acquired an external SSD from which to run games off of. With the upcoming massive increase in storage space that's going to be required for Final Fantasy XIV, it's practically doubling in size. I realized that's going to take up so I have a 500 gigabyte like drive internally and like no additional drives. So I was like, ah man, I'm not gonna be able to fit much onto this while I'm playing 14, and that's a real bummer. And you know, I'm someone who employs what? I'm someone who enjoys playing games with big file sizes. I like my MMOs, and currently I am playing World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14 at the same time. So I quickly realized I need to do something, and the sensible thing to do would just be to get a new drive and mount it inside my PC. But nowadays, I've looked into it and it intimidates me. It seems to need, like, you know, mounting onto like the motherboard or some shit, or the CPU. I don't know how it works. And I am someone who gets very anxious about fucking up hundreds of pounds of PC that they can't replace or get fixed at a cheap price. So I thought, what's an easier, less stressful solution? And I thought, hey, hang on a minute, my Xbox Series S has an external hard drive it can run games off of as long as they're part of a previous console cycle. Theoretically, that should be a thing you can do on PCs as well, right? And yeah, not a hard drive, but you can get an external SSD. So that's what I did. I got an external SSD, 1 terabyte, and that is now where World of Warcraft lives. I thought to myself, you know, I did loads of research beforehand because I was like, is this really possible? I was asking around in Discords and stuff. Because I didn't want to spend all that money and then just have a drive that I can't really use. But I thought, the worst, I've got a 1 terabyte memory stick I can put all of my video footage onto, because that was kind of piling up. I do have an external hard drive, or I guess I should say, I've got a hard drive in external hard drive housing from my old PC, which is what I use to store a lot of footage, but that requires its own plug. It makes a lot of noise when it's turned on. I feel like it increases the coil whine I have going on in my PC a little bit as well. So yeah, that's a whole thing. And I was like, how do I make this less of a whole thing? How do I just have storage that's always available, always online and connected to my PC, and I don't even notice that it's there? So that was another reason I went for this. But yeah, it took a little bit of setting up. I forgot to format it before I downloaded World of Warcraft onto it, which was a shame because that meant I had to download it twice. But I eventually formatted it to, is it NTFS or NFTS or something? And there was a moment where I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, because I just downloaded WoW and tried to run it and it wasn't working. And I was like, oh no. But you know, I got it. Long story short, I got it working. The only difference between WoW on my internal SSD and WoW on my external SSD is it takes like maybe 10 more seconds to load up, and sometimes my character's invisible for like half a second when you have stones somewhere. That's it. It works perfectly fine. And I've also ran Star Wars The Old Republic off of it, because that was another thing I had to uninstall recently. And I also bought for £2.49 the game Grip, which is a spiritual successor to Roll Cage. And I was going to play that, but it turns out it doesn't have DualShock for controller support. It just has Xbox controller support, and I'm really lazy, and I have a quick way of hooking up my PS4 controller, but not a quick way of hooking up my Xbox Series S controller. So I was like, oh, that's a bummer. But all that to say, Grip also runs perfectly fine on there. So I'm happy. I've got a terabyte more storage, basically. And I do keep going like, ooh, I could download the PC version of Diablo 4, because I normally play it on Xbox. And then I keep going, oh, right, yeah, that's probably not going to run great off. So obviously there's some limitations, but as long as World of Warcraft The War Within runs off it well, when that comes out in a few months, I'm happy. But even then, if it doesn't, I'll have had time to play Dawn Trail by then, and I can just uninstall Final Fantasy XIV, or move that to the external drive and see how Dawn Trail runs off of it. Although I do really like how fast frickin' Endwalker loads up and runs, and I like being able to just travel between Aetherites and just in a split second, flip, I'm there. That is something of a novelty. But for those of you who don't know, in the next expansion, Dawn Trail, Final Fantasy XIV is getting a big graphical upgrade, so it's going to be more of a modern game than a last-gen game. Anyway, I mentioned Diablo 4. Guess who's playing Diablo 4? It's me. Okay, so a quick history of my time with and opinion of Diablo 4. I really loved the story, although I thought it dragged on a little bit, and the level scaling really hurt my enjoyment of that game, because I just kept getting weaker and weaker as I leveled up. That is a problem amongst all of Blizzard's level-based RPG-style games that they still have not fixed. And I've had a lot of trouble getting into Diablo 4's endgame. I was so burnt out by the time I finished the story, I didn't get into it. And then Season 2, I poked my head in, didn't get into it. Season 3, I poked my head in, didn't get into it. Season 4, so far, I'm like level 40 something, and I'm like battle pass, or whatever it's called, level like 15 or 16, and I've been doing some of the Hell Tides, and you know what? It's just fun, and I think a big part of that is that Reese is playing it too, and this is the first time I've been playing Diablo 4 with someone, but yeah, it's just fun. It's just nice to have installed on my Xbox so that I can just boot up and slay some demons when I feel like it, just like Diablo 3 would back in the day. I don't know how far into endgame I'm going to wade. I don't know how far, like right now I'm playing a druid and I've just been choosing what sounds cool. I've just been throwing together, I've not even been like doing like the casual level theory crafting going, oh, I think this would synergize with this. Maybe a little bit in terms of choosing passives and stuff. But other than that, like in terms of like legendary powers and stuff, I'm just throwing shit on and going. I don't think it matters until I'm more high level, but when it comes to the point where that's actually important, who knows if I'm going to stick around. For now though, I'm having the most fun I've had with Diablo 4 since I first played through its campaign, and I think that's something worth talking about. I think that's cool. I think that should be applauded. That being said, I don't really know what Loot Reborn has changed specifically, apart from now you can do tempering, which is a lot like enchanting, but we swear it's different. And also, that's me not understanding the full system, by the way. And also it seems like when you salvage legendary items now, you automatically salvage the aspect power, so you don't have to like extract in all that stuff, which is a better system, I guess. But beyond that, I think it's just been long enough for me to get back into the game maybe, and I've just happened to be vibing with it. I don't know if that they've necessarily changed anything I've been waiting for, apart from I did mention the scaling issue. I feel like I haven't run into that so far in the game this time round, but then I'm playing endgame and not campaign as I level up, so who knows if that's why. Also, I feel like everyone's chosen to roll a druid this season. They're everywhere. I'm one of millions. I still can't pretend to be excited about Vessel of Hatred and the fact that we're going to a swamp, and I look at Hawazar and I go, cool, another swamp. And they're like, the new class is Swamp Wizard, and I look at Druid and I go, cool, another Nature Wizard. It's just so entirely not my bag, but you know what, the expansion's like 30 quid, I'll probably pick it up and play through it, because it at the very least continues the story of the Diablo 4 campaign, which was fun and interesting. It wasn't incredible, but you know, it was cool. I was into it at the time, so let's see if they can pull me back into it again. Oh, okay, changing the topic, new hyperfixation alert. I'm addicted to another anime soundtrack, it's happened again. Bleach 1000 Year Blood War. So I caught up on that this week. You may remember I was actually doing weekly thoughts on videos as the episodes came out, and then I fell off midway through season 2, which I apologize for, because I'm sure I think like those videos were getting views, I think people were enjoying them, but I just wandered off. My attention span suddenly went, no more Bleach, something else. So this week I finally went back and caught up on a season, and I've been wondering, do I do another video where I'm like, oh, my thoughts on the end of season 2, and I don't know. I don't really know what that video would be. Hi. Well, it's me again. I know Bleach isn't relevant or popular right now, but I went back and caught myself up, and here's my thoughts. I don't know if anyone would care about that. So I guess in summary, it was good. I liked the extra things they added. That's me also saying I don't know if I have strong enough feelings about it to really make a video about it. It's just, yeah, it's an adaptation of a thing I like, and it's good. And, yeah, I've been addicted to the soundtrack, because the soundtrack recently came out, at least it did on YouTube Music. I assume it came out on Spotify and everywhere else too. And Shiro Sagasu, man, he's just... Oh, this is funny, by the way. I get stuck behind this for a decent amount of time. Oh no. Anyway, as I was saying, Shiro Sagasu is a legend, and I can't stop listening to the first 1000 Year Blood War album, which has come out, and annoyingly the tracks are kind of just like file names, and they're all out of order in terms of, I feel like, when they first show up and stuff, but I'm learning what each track name actually means, which song it is, and yeah, it's good stuff. I've been wondering if I could do some kind of video about soundtracks without having to actually play them, because then, you know, the videos would get flagged and adverts would be put all over them, and my channel would be in bad standing for pirating music, etc, etc. The the copyright police in short would throw a shit fit, because that's what they like to do. But yeah, I don't know, a video where I'm like, hey, go put this on for yourself and we'll go talk about this soundtrack and what I like about it. Could be fun. That being said, I'm no Marco Meatball. Marco Meatballs? I forget his username. I always feel like I don't know how to talk about music properly, but then I have conversations with people about music and they seem to turn out fine, so who knows. Let me know if you want that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the end of Bleach Season 2, and more importantly, I'm addicted to the soundtrack of Bleach. I think it's just Season 1, but yeah, really good stuff. All I'm going to say is I didn't know saxophone could work in an anime soundtrack and be that dangerous and be that crazy, but oh, oof. Good stuff. Oh, I have another video game to talk about. Sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place in this video in terms of topics, but I've been playing Octopath Traveler 2. I don't think I talked about that last week. If I did, here's an update on my progress. So for those of you who don't know, Octopath Traveler 2 is a I guess JRPG style game where instead of you know, in the vein of like the old Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games where there's like an overworld and you know, it's turn-based battles and that kind of thing, and it's pixel graphics, but of course I'm sure everyone's aware of the HD 2D graphics craze, and Octopath Traveler pioneered that. The gimmick in terms of gameplay with Octopath Traveler is there are 8 main characters and you can choose to start as any one of them. And so I started with the warrior Hikari and I did chapter 1 of his story, and then I went through and I found the merchant Particio and I did episode 1 of his story, and then I went and I found the apothecary whose name I've forgotten and I did chapter 1 of her story, and then I went and found the dancer whose name I've also forgotten and I did chapter 1 of her story, and now I'm going towards the I guess they're the ranger or the beast lord or whatever they're called, whatever that class is. I'm going towards them and I'm excited to do chapter 1 of their story. But here's the thing, it's kind of recommended to do chapter 1 of everyone's story, so you have the full 8 character roster before you continue doing chapter 2 and stuff. In terms of level requirement, that's also I guess recommended if not required. But I do get a little bit tired of starting a brand new story that has nothing to do with the story I just saw over and over and over again, while knowing that there's more chapters to each and every one in particular story. And I feel like the game is better as a whole when I've got the multiple characters and I know that they've got these cool backstories. It's always nice to have a party of characters that you're invested in, and I'm invested in each and every single one of them so far. So to travel around the world as all of them with their unique abilities and stuff is really cool and fun, and I can see how that game could become amazing as it goes on. But definitely starting out, it's a little slow, resetting each time. And you don't have to do this. There's an option to like play through their origin stories later. You can just pick them up if you want as you go, but that would bug the hell out of me. But yeah, I'm playing for Octopath Traveler 2 basically, and that's my initial thoughts on the game so far. It's really fun. I'm glad it's on Game Pass. I'm glad they brought Octopath Traveler 1 to Game Pass as well, but I'd already played through a little bit of Octopath Traveler 1 and I couldn't quite remember it, and I thought instead of having to make that decision of do I start over or do I try and continue and remember it as I go, etc., why don't I just start with its sequel, which is more critically acclaimed than the original, and you know, because these are on Game Pass, they're not going to be there forever. I know that if I start with 1 and then it doesn't vibe with me because of what I just said and then I get distracted, then I'm never going to get to Octopath Traveler 2 before it leaves. So for once I've decided to just start with the most recent game in the series, which is not a narrative sequel. Anyway, yeah, the main thing about my week that's not really worth talking about because I've talked about it in other parts of other videos is I've just been on a massive Doctor Who craze. I already talked last week about discovering Big Finish and their range and their podcast Into the TARDIS, which is, you know, kind of some of their stories are free on there. I also realised the first, I guess, 50 Big Finish audio stories are free on Spotify as well as free audiobooks. I've got a great big spreadsheet to keep track of my Big Finish progress and when I've already listened to stories and what I thought about them and what happened in them and stuff. It's got like 21 tabs or whatever. It's a crazy spreadsheet. But yeah, obviously we just had the first half of the season 1 finale of Doctor Who. Not going to talk about it here, but I have already talked about it in a video if you want to go and watch that video. But it's prompted me to go and start watching through a classic Doctor Who story, which I'm not going to reveal because that kind of in itself is a spoiler for the Doctor Who first half of the Doctor Who finale I just mentioned. But there will be a thoughts on Classic Who about it some point this week, so be ready for that. It is, of course, a sequence break, which I've never done with Thoughts on Classic Who. The point of that show is to watch through all of classic Doctor Who in order as far as the serials are available. But it's been fun to jump ahead to a later iteration of the Doctor. I don't know what that accent was that just poked up there. And I'm enjoying that, so expect that video this week. But anyway, this video is coming to a close. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you in whatever I make next as I bleed out. Bleh.